Special Forces selection is a very physically demanding environment and requires a high level of running, rucking, strength, and a lot of overall durability. It's a course that people train up for months or years to attend, and in this video, I'm gonna cover exactly how I would train if I had to go back in the next 6 months. Now, before we dive into the specifics of what I'd be doing on a daily basis, let's take a look at where I'm currently at. Since leaving the military, my training has changed a lot. It went from always going 100 miles an hour, pushing through injuries, and constantly demanding a lot of my body to focusing much more on rehabbing those injuries and longevity. With that, I currently have a solid foundation of durability, strength, and endurance, but in terms of SFAS standards, I could probably stand to improve my run time a little bit. To do this, I'm going to include 3 to 4 runs per week, 2 zone 2, 1 tempo, and 1 speed day where I focus on driving my run time down with intervals. For the first 2 to 3 months, depending on how my run times are progressing, I'm gonna replace one of those zone 2 runs with a walking only ruck every other week. As I get closer and my run times are exactly where I want them to be, I will increase that frequency to once per week with a kit run in addition to that. Now for rucking, I'll start with about 35 pounds dry, meaning my ruck weighs 35 pounds before I add any water or snacks or anything like that. This will enable me to get the stimulus and conditioning of rucking while not creating a ton of fatigue that undermines my ability to get my run times down in this phase. As I progress with rucking, I'll build up to 45 pounds dry, which is the weight you'll be tested on at selection. For strength training, because I come from a strength background and have a solid foundation of strength currently, I will include 3 full body strength sessions per week. These sessions will start with a warm-up where I include hip stability prehab work, then move into the main block where I prioritize compound movements such as bench, squat, deadlift, and overhead press. With the big movements, I will follow an altered version of the 5-3-1 method, so as each 4-week phase progresses, the intensity increases as volume decreases. And every 4th week would be a deload week to manage that fatigue and ensure that I'm incrementally increasing those numbers over time. With the lifting sessions, my mindset will be to support everything we're doing outside the gym. My bench, squat, deadlift, overhead press is not the main event. So that means I'm not doing any ego lifting. I'm getting good stimulus, but I really don't care if I hit some crazy PR or not. My goal is to continue building strength without imposing any unnecessary injuries. After the big movements in the session, I will include some accessory work where I'm primarily training in the rep ranges of 8 to 12, depending on the movement, and some GPP or general physical preparedness movements like carries, sled pushes, sled pulls, or plyometrics like jumps. I would also include some push-up specific sessions that are not crazy, 5 to 10 minutes, but really focus on driving up that muscular endurance so I'm solid for that initial PT test. Now, our strength coach, who is the head strength coach of 3rd Battalion 75th Ranger Regiment, wrote a program that is very similar to the one I would run, and out of all the programs he's written for us, this is one of my favorites. So I'm gonna go over that exact program with you, talk about the things I would change in my situation, and then give you the free PDF that you can use in your training. All right, guys, so this is the program written by our strength coach, Matt Powell, and it fits what I'm talking about and the program I would run in the next 6 months pretty well. So I put it in here and I want to go over it. I'm going to talk about the things I would tweak for myself and make sure that you understand it or how to implement it or how to tweak it to your specific needs, right? I want to start by saying any of these PDF programs, it's not a one size fits all. So don't think you have to adhere to it specifically, but there's rules or there's principles or intentions behind specific movements that you can tailor and figure out different movements that work best for you. So I like to include conditioning pretty much every day. Stair climbing is a fantastic way to support rucking development without getting a ton of fatigue with having the ruck on your back. So I'll start the session with 80 flights for time. Now I can, you can separate this into a completely different session if you have the time availability to do so, or have it all together. You will get a little bit of glycogen deplenishment, but for me, like I said, I have a pretty solid foundation of strength. Strength is not my main thing that I'm pushing right now. So it's all going to be sub-maximal, pretty not low intensity, but pretty moderate intensity. So I'm not going to have any, problems with doing conditioning in the same session. So I'll start with some conditioning, go into a superset, working on some explosive movements, obviously with some core activation there. Barbell back squats. This is what I talked about in regards to the altered version of the 5-3-1 method. A typical 5-3-1 method would be, 3 reps of 5 at 65, 75, and then 5 plus at 85% in this first week. With this, we're just going to keep it very simple. Again, strength is not the main mover here, and we're going to go 70%. So 3 reps of 5 at 70%. Next week will be 3 reps of 3 at 80%. The following week would be 3 reps of 1 at 90%. Then we're going to have some accessory movements, dumbbell incline bench press, pull up, glute ham raise. Glute ham raise is a fantastic movement for tactical athletes for posterior chain development. And then a superset, again, dumbbell alternating bicep curl, plank, tricep extensions, and then band pull aparts. And then I can finish with the push-up circuit, or I can do this anytime in the day, whether it's, after dinner, chilling with the wife, watching some Netflix, whatever. It takes 5 to 10 minutes, but it will absolutely help get those push-up numbers up. I'm still going to hit the warm-up, so I'm still doing the prehab work that I like to do every day. I don't know about you, but my hips get really tight. I develop a lot of imbalances very quickly if I'm not doing things like this. I'm very muscle bound in my hips, so I like to keep them moving on a daily basis. So even with the zone 2 session, I'll include some of that, whether it's at home or whatever. I'm going to extend this out, so I would do 45 to 60 minute zone 2 session with where I'm currently at. With where you're currently at, if 30 minutes is all you can, or if 10 minutes is all you can do, don't stress it. Just incrementally build that up and increase the time, by about 10% week over week. All right, next, I will start this session, which you'll see is a more upper biased full body session with interval runs. So I am a big fan of 1 mile repeats. So with these, I'm going to run 1 mile after the warm up, and then I'm going to wait the exact time it took me to run that mile. So if I ran that mile in 6 minutes, I will rest for 6 minutes and then run the second mile. Probably rest for 10, 15 minutes, let my body recover a little bit before going into the strength session. Start with a little bit of explosive movements, single leg focus, and then go up into the big movement, which is going to be that submaximal, again, barbell overhead press. Then we have some accessory movements working on that lateral pull, and then again, posterior chain strength in those hamstrings before moving into the final circuit. Day 4 will be my second zone 2 run. Now, again, I would probably take this up to 45 to 60 minutes. I'm a big fan of just doing 60-minute zone 2 runs. It feels really good for me, but just base it on where you're currently at, right? Day 5, we will have some low impact, high intensity conditioning paired with a trap bar deadlift. So knock out the conditioning first, or you can do it last. It's not a big deal in this sense. Rest 4 to 5 minutes, really get feeling good. And then for me, again, I'm going to be doing submaximal trap bar deadlift. You can do straight bar. I like to train trap bar, especially if I have a course coming up, or especially if I'm being very, very diligent about not imposing any injuries. For me, heavy straight bar deadlifts is a more high risk movement. So there's nothing wrong with doing them. You get a lot of, CNS and strength development out of them, but you're completely fine if you want to do trap bar deadlifts. Pair those with some box jumps to hit our plyometrics for the day. And then we're going to do the same with barbell bench press. Again, working submaximal, pair that with, parallel grip pull-ups. And then we have our circuit at the end. And then for this day, we're going to also include a little push-up circuit, really working on those T push-ups that the Army loves so much. Then day 6, this is the one I was talking about in regards to where I'm currently at. I would probably be running a ruck or doing a ruck every other week starting out. I'm pretty solid with rucking, so I don't have a whole lot of concerns there. And then I would be doing a 60 to 90 minute zone 2 session. So with the rucking, I will primarily focus on walking only for the first part of this. When we're running a high volume program like this, fatigue management becomes a very big component to seeing those consistent gains week over week. And because my focus is on driving down my run times in this initial 2 to 3 months, I'm not going to go out and ruck run and crush myself and drive up that fatigue by going too crazy with it. I'm going to have plenty of time on the backside of getting those run times down to really increase that rucking volume and that rucking intensity heading into selection. So as it progresses, again, we're going to have the altered version of the 5-3-1 method. So again, 3x3 at 80%, pretty similar. I like to change up movements every 4 weeks or so for the accessory movements. I usually always have some form of the big 3 or big 4 inside the plan, but I like to change up accessory movements and hit things a little bit differently. The reason I don't change accessory movements every single workout is because you're never going to know if you're getting a progressive overload or not. You're never going to know if you're progressing progressing in that specific movement. So I like to keep things the same phase by phase. And each week I aim to add a rep, add 2 reps, add 5 pounds, whatever it is, just incrementally increasing the demands I'm placing on my body, which is over time going to stimulate those strength adaptations that I'm going to make. So that is the gist of a plan on a weekly basis. If you want to look at the full 30 days and run through this and see how it feels for yourself, the link to that is down in the description. But other than that, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will talk to you very soon.